Welcome to Northwest Florida News and Real Estate, the podcast where we keep you informed about the latest trends in real estate and business across Northwest Florida. I'm your host, HomeBot. This podcast is curated by Lars Rygaard and his real estate team. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that's top of mind for many buyers and sellers right now. Our episode today is called Post-Election Real Estate and Business Trends: What Buyers and Sellers Should Know. As we've all experienced, presidential elections tend to bring a lot of uncertainty. And as we've seen in the past, that uncertainty can create temporary shifts in the real estate market. In this episode, we're going to break down exactly how elections impact real estate, property values, mortgage rates, and what buyers and sellers should be thinking about in the wake of an election. Whether you're buying or selling in Northwest Florida or anywhere across the country, these trends are something you'll want to pay attention to. First, let's talk about the uncertainty that surrounds election years. Historically, presidential elections tend to create temporary disruptions in the market. When it comes to real estate, many buyers and sellers tend to take a step back and adopt a wait-and-see approach. That's because a lot of people are unsure about how the election results might impact things like tax policies, housing regulations, and interest rates. With all of that uncertainty, buyers may hesitate to commit to a purchase, and sellers may hold off on listing their properties. This pause in activity often leads to a slight slowdown in the market during the election year itself. But here's the good news: this slowdown is usually temporary. After the election results are in and the dust settles, the market tends to bounce back pretty quickly. It's important to keep in mind that the impact of an election on real estate is often short-term, and the market will eventually return to normal. So while election years might bring a momentary dip in activity, it's not something buyers or sellers should panic over. Let's take a look at what typically happens to home prices during election years. Over the last 13 presidential elections, home price growth has remained fairly steady, averaging about 4.84% during election years. Interestingly, this is slightly higher than the growth rate seen in non-election years. This shows us that, despite the uncertainty that surrounds election cycles, home prices tend to continue their upward trend once the election results are settled. There is, of course, one major exception to this rule: the 2008 and 2009 housing crisis. That was a very different situation, driven by the subprime mortgage crisis and the collapse of the housing market, not by anything related to the election itself. But overall, after election years, home prices tend to return to their upward trajectory as the market regains its footing. So, if you're a buyer or a seller, this trend suggests that it's likely to be a good time to enter the market once the election is over, as long as you're focused on long-term growth. Another important factor to consider is mortgage rates. A lot of buyers are watching mortgage rates closely, and the good news is that in many election years, mortgage rates tend to dip slightly in the months leading up to the election. In fact, in 8 out of the last 11 election cycles, mortgage rates have fallen just before the election. But here's the catch: this dip in rates is generally modest. It's not something that will dramatically change the affordability of homes, but it could provide an opportunity for buyers to lock in a slightly lower rate before things pick back up. After the election, mortgage rates tend to rise again, but that's not necessarily because of the election itself. Mortgage rates are more influenced by broader economic conditions, such as inflation, Federal Reserve policies, and overall economic stability. If the economy is doing well, mortgage rates might rise as the Fed tightens monetary policy to combat inflation. Conversely, if the economy is struggling, the Fed might keep rates low to stimulate growth. So, while elections may cause a short-term fluctuation in rates, the broader economic factors will ultimately determine the longer-term direction of mortgage rates. Now, let's talk about what all of this means for buyers and sellers here in Northwest Florida. Whether you're in Pensacola, Destin, Panama City, or Fort Walton Beach, it's important to understand that the national trends we've discussed don't always play out exactly the same in every local market. While the uncertainty of an election year may slow down the national real estate market temporarily, the market in Northwest Florida has its own unique dynamics. In recent years, Northwest Florida has seen tremendous growth in demand for both primary and secondary homes. The appeal of the area's stunning beaches, warm climate, and lower cost of living compared to many other parts of the country has attracted buyers from higher-cost areas, such as the Northeast and California. This demand has driven home prices upward in many parts of the region. In Northwest Florida, the demand for homes has remained strong, even through political transitions. This makes it an excellent market for both buyers and sellers, particularly in the wake of an election. While national trends can influence the overall market, The strong local economy and the region's appeal to out-of-state buyers help keep the market stable. From our boots-on-the-ground perspective, we are seeing sellers dig their heels in on price. Many feel waterfront property is the safest real estate there is. What do you think? If you're a buyer or seller in Northwest Florida, it's important to work with a top-producing real estate team that understands the nuances of the local market. A knowledgeable team can help you navigate any potential market shifts and position you for success. Whether you're buying your first home, looking for a vacation property, or selling a piece of investment real estate, the right real estate professional will be able to provide insights and guidance that can make all the difference. So, what's the takeaway for buyers and sellers, especially after an election year? It's simple. While there may be some temporary uncertainty during an election cycle, history shows that the real estate market typically bounces back quickly. Home prices are likely to continue their upward trajectory. Mortgage rates might dip slightly before the election, and once the election is over, the market will stabilize. For buyers and sellers in Northwest Florida, the key is to focus on the long-term trends and work with a real estate expert who can help you make informed decisions based on the local market. One final thought from our team leader, Lars Rygaard. When it comes to investment and vacation property, equity comes and goes, but the cash always flows. Thanks for joining us today on Northwest Florida News and Real Estate. We hope this episode has helped you better understand the impact of elections on the real estate market and what you should be thinking about if you're buying or selling a home. If you'd like to learn more about the Northwest Florida real estate market, be sure to visit our website at my850.com. We'll see you next time.